Gentlemen, I'm sure you, my airline colleagues, envy me of standing in here. My team has asked me to gather as much intelligence as possible from you guys, so I'm going to be asking all the hard questions, and you'll have to answer them. Anyways, really, I'm here at the invitation of Global Loyalty Organization to moderate this panel. Global Loyalty Organization is a global independent network of loyalty professionals. We're a member of that. I believe Air France as well is a member of the Global Loyalty Organization, but we have other members from other industries like Accor, Deloitte, and Visa, part of the network, and we exchange regularly. I think this is a great platform like this one for us to talk about some of the trends. I'm going to address the elephant in the room, even though, Gerald, you've started talking about it, but I would love also to hear from Ben as well. I believe many, my colleagues agree with me. The pandemic put us on the spotlight for our contribution to the bottom line during COVID. We were probably the only unit that kept on generating revenue for the airlines and big contribution to the bottom line. Post-pandemic, totally different picture with the boom in travel, not enough seats available for our members to redeem on. So big challenge for us. We've seen instances of I would call program devaluation. All of us have approached it in a different way, but it is, we call a spade a spade. It is somewhat of a program devaluation. So I would like really to find out how your guys are. Etihad arrived. They're welcome to join in. But how are you guys weathering the storm really, with this change from pre-pandemic or during the pandemic to the post-pandemic?
I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
So it's true. I mean, I think we certainly during the pandemic, and I think now even more so, it's clear that the loyalty organization is the one responsible for a lot of the more resilient revenues that come in. And I think we've seen recently some really significant changes in the industry, both in Europe with British Airways, but in the US with Delta, and how even a small change or can have an outsized impact from those who are most loyal. But at the same time, I think when we look at American, for example, when they followed the change to kind of more total revenue-based accumulation for status, their the spend on their co-branded credit cards went up, the number of co-branded credit card applications went up, the spend on their partners went up, and by extension their commission. So I think, and the reason I'm mentioning the US in particular is because I think there you have a true understanding, or rather a different understanding of the importance of loyalty towards the bottom line. Having worked in the North American market, now working in Europe, I can tell you that it's a totally different, total ballgame, so to speak. The reliance that we have on our co-brand credit cards is a lot less due to the regulated interchange fees in Europe. See a lot of nodding heads. You're all familiar with the challenges we face. That being said, we have a strong business in the credit card conversions, so primarily Americans, but transferring their points from Amex or Chase or Citi into our program and then redeeming. To your point about the limited availability, one of the strengths, to toot our own horn, of Flying Blue in our case, is we have dynamic inventory. We were actually one of the first ones to move towards this in about 10 years ago. And that was done at the request of our members, which allows them to redeem for any seat on the plane. So we have, of course, when the plane is full, to help us get rid of distressed inventory, you have the cheapest seats available, the saver inventory or the more limited seats for lower prices. But of course, you can then, if you want to go on a particular date or on a particular flight, you can use more miles to buy that seat. So for us, that has helped kind of shield the members a little bit from these kinds of devaluations, because it just mimics the not one-to-one, but it does mimic kind of the commercial value of the seats, which does again keep our revenue management team happy and also our members.
Gerald, anything to add to that?
Yeah, first of all, I think loyalty has a commercial impact. The thing is, we are today not able to show it, no? But loyalty is changing the customer behavior, and this is, I would say, it is often not rational. It is very emotional. And that's why we are working on this customer lifetime value concept so heavily, because we would like to show this commercial impact. So what is the real commercial impact of the loyalty program to the bottom line of the airlines? Because what we know, for instance, a customer who had a business class redemption flight for the first time, Hi, the party's going on, eh? A customer who had a business class redemption flight for the first time and never booked full fare business class tickets before is booking it afterwards. And that's what I mean with loyalty is changing the customer behavior also in terms of, you know, you're giving them a perk, you have the experience, and then you're changing your buying behavior. So, but we need to make it transparent. That's the key aspect of it, and that's why we're working on the lifetime concept.
Thanks, Gerald. And actually talking about customer behavior and turn to Bruce, you published the paper just a couple of weeks ago, or even actually not even less than that, talking about the 3 major trends that you've seen in terms of the behavior of loyalty members. I think you talk about the introduction of more, or the prominence of lifestyle loyalty. It's one thing. I think the second thing, talking about relevance and recognition, and the third thing, something that Gerald talked about earlier when talking to Harold, about the simplicity and accessibility of programs. Could you just take us a bit more into details?
Sure. Maybe just for context, and I think my colleagues have already mentioned, you know, that there's quite a different marketplace that's come back post-pandemic, and I think the mix of customers, the heavy predominant leisure blended market, maybe less of the road warriors, sort of changed the makeup of the market. And I think that's a bearing going forward with the construct of loyalty programs. The other one is the monetization, to points made by Gerald. You know, I think there's a realization now that loyalty is a highly valuable asset and it needs to be monetized and quantified in ways that contribute to the overall business. So the first one really sits around lifestyle, and it really, if you go with the notion that there's a different marketplace out there, yes, there's a lot of people traveling, but the frequency on average has probably come down a little. So the question becomes, how do you stay relevant with an audience when they're not traveling on your aircraft or in your hotels or whatever space across the loyalty and travel spectre that you play? And it really speaks to being part of their everyday lives rather than just their travel lives. And I think that's where lifestyle kicks in. And that's where partner ecosystems and the ability to stay relevant when people aren't in your brand, so that when they do come back to the travel world, your brand is top of mind. And clearly that can be done through things like co-brands, but not necessarily. Partnerships of any sort can play a role to do that. So that's what lifestyle speaks to. When I talk about relevance and recognition, relevance in the sense of, and this is something we observe, we work with a lot of brands around the world in travel and hospitality. Often they go back to the well, to the program, the construct, to say, I need to reboot this, it's clearly not working, I need to look at the value proposition, when in fact, often it's the marketing that brings it to life that's actually not performing against the backdrop of a program that's probably quite robust. It's just not being communicated well. And maybe just to give you some quick stats, the drop-off of return travelers that come into a loyalty program is quite significant in terms of a second or repeat travel behavior. And the ability to have marketing to onboard and educate and inaugurate people into a program is super important. And a lot of brands don't do that very well. So it's a big area of relevance. And the recognition speaks to a deprived market that's come back into a marketplace 2 years on and is looking for those small touches. And these aren't just necessarily status and benefits. These are just the small recognition touches that I think, and we'll talk about this throughout this morning. On simplicity and accessibility, it's just about dumbing down programs. For many, these are legacy programs that have been around a long time, have become quite elaborate in form, and for a consumer, quite hard to understand. So taking a 40,000-foot view of a program, it's quite a labyrinth of complexity, but consumers see it like a tunnel. They're traversing from one door to the next, and the ability to be able to simplify and make accessibility into that program and drive incrementality is super important. So that's it.
Thanks, Bruce, and maybe go back to my airline colleagues and maybe start with Mark. Welcome to the panel. Can you elaborate a little bit? You know, we heard about the three trends that Bruce talked about, and how are you adapting to these trends as well? If you're seeing the same thing in your member base and how you're adapting to it.
Hello. Hey guys, sorry for being late. It's not an Etihad OTP, I promise you. It's just me. Yeah, look, I think on the everyday side, 3 years ago we launched the Miles on the Go product in Etihad Guests. It allowed the currency to be surfaced in an ecosystem of 1,000+ merchants. That was kind of the beginning of the narrative of how we can get the currency to be prevalent in a non-air space. I think what is evolving now is we still drive the member to come to our ecosystem to transact. I think our currency needs to be surfaced in their ecosystem instead, so it becomes part of their life rather than forcing the member into our lives, if that makes sense. So I think that's an evolution of that space. I think simplicity is definitely important, but I think also what's going to happen is we need to put some of the choice back in the members' hands. So at the moment, to your point, Bruce, I think we have a legacy product that is a tier benefit structure that's the same for everybody, irrespective whether you're corporate or family leisure flyer, whether you fly once a year or 25,000 times a year, whatever it may be, there is always the same tier benefits. I think the member needs to take some of the ownership of that and give them the choice of what they want to do when they're flying for that certain kind of transaction. On the recognition side, I think Skyward does a great job of recognizing their members through your experiential product. You have a great asset suite of sponsorships. We're in the beginning of doing that. What we're seeing is members are enjoying the ability to engage with us in a non-kind of transactional sense. So taking them to football games with the City Football Group or taking them on flights and nautical services is meaning that we can talk to them in an informal sense, and that emotional connection is not just a narrative in an email, it's a narrative that you're having face-to-face, one-to-one. So I think as we come out of COVID, members are still expecting that emotional connection, and so we can find ways to recognize them by taking them on trips, but also engaging with them more frequently to understand what they like.
Hi. Gerald or Ben?
I think, yeah, I would echo what Mark said, because I mean, I think the emotional aspect leads to what we call, or what I call, kind of the aspirational rewards and irrational behavior in order to achieve those. When I say irrational behavior, I don't mean that in a negative sense. What I mean is you go out of your way to take a flight that might have an extra connection or be less convenient or more expensive, which of course is the goal, because you're loyal to the airline or hotel chain or car rental company, that kind of thing. And we see our partners Accor on the hotel space. They've done very similarly the experiential aspect, where because they sponsor the Paris the soccer team in Paris, and you can use your miles to go train on the pitch with the players, which is something that's so unique. People are extremely loyal because and they don't end up using their points for hotel rooms, but they use it for these kinds of experiences. And so we're similarly to Etihad, we're also in the early stages of developing that, especially in light of the Olympics coming to Paris next year, as well as of course some of the more experiential items that we have. The Michelin star chefs that we have, based of with the culinary kind of expertise of France, that kind of thing. We also see that when emotion drives customer behavior, there's a lot of real attachment to the program, which means that you have your own ambassadors in talking to their own networks and their own friends and families and colleagues, which can help drive business. So that's, for me, I think it's a big reason to treat your customers with respect, to make sure that you communicate well. And I think gone are the days when you can try to spin a negative change, which is going to happen sometime, into a positive, because people talk and people feel insulted if you try to do that. So I think that's the other thing too, is we're looking at how we change our communication to make sure that it is transparent in a way that perhaps that mimics, I think, what the expectations of the customer is.
Thanks, Ben. Gerald, you add to that?
Yeah. No, I can really second what you basically said. I had an interesting exchange a couple of weeks ago, and I learned a sentence which I really like: experiences over things. And what does it mean? So we see overall that customers are spending more on experiences like restaurants, also traveling, by the way, and less on things, classical, retail stuff and things like that. And I think this is a new phase. So we are entering now this phase, coming out from the pandemic, experiences over things. So you rather invest in your personal experience, also in, meeting friends, families, and so on, rather than buying the next stuff you don't need. And I think from this point, it plays a major role for the loyalty program to exactly address these experiences and to create also these experiences, because it's not just the transactional part, it's the emotional part. And this will be, I think that's a trend, it's an ongoing trend, it's not a spotlight, so to say.
Thank you. Ricky, as an airline partner, how does your product actually support the airlines to face some of these trends?
Well, I think everyone knows that travel insurance is the sexiest product in the travel space. Can we all just start and agree to that?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So at Allianz, we don't assume. We don't assume what the traveler, the customer is looking for. It used to be cost. It used to be the time. It used to be, what's gonna happen with the weather around travel insurance? And what we've learned, and what we continue to learn and to evolve, is that it's around safety, security, and well-being. And that well-being ties to the lifestyle and everywhere that these gentlemen have talked about. And how can we create products that can work in each of our partners' ecosystems? how can we make sure, more importantly, sorry, partners and prospects, sir, that we're understanding your brand and supporting your brand. And so we do that with each of our partners a little differently, making sure that our products are easy to understand, easy to purchase, and easy to claim. So when you have that something goes wrong moment, I think you talked about if there's an IROP or if something goes wrong, that we're here and we're here to fix it as quickly as possible. We can't prevent things from happening, but we can make them better by responding quickly and supporting customers and our partners' brand. And that's key to what we're doing to focus and what we're maniacally focused on to support our partners in this changing world.
Thanks, Rick. I think the next sexiest thing to an insurance is the being a payment network. So I'll ask you, Bruce.
It's your call, I guess. I see it differently from my agnostic point of view, but
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, Bruce, just I know Mastercard is beyond just being a payment network. They provide some advisory services, I think, to the airlines. We had a chance to work with you guys on some personalization, I think, work for Skywards. Can you just talk to us a little bit about some of the use cases that you had lately working with the airline partners and how you're supporting them in understanding these new trends and new segments, emerging segments?
Yeah, we've been working with some carriers a little along the lines of what I was talking about earlier in terms of bringing the program to life, call it the contact strategy or the life cycle. And a lot of that's untouched territory that needs a major overhaul. And I think it presents a lot of bottom line and top line opportunity, to be honest. We're also helping brands with invigorating the proposition itself or introducing a co-brand potentially into their ecosystem. So we cover the span of services. I will tell you, just an unpaid advertisement, we are, as a strategy consulting unit, somewhat agnostic to payments and things like platforms. So we go in purely to help businesses succeed through the space of loyalty and customer engagement. But what we're sensing, and this is a universal truth, is loyalty is taking a high profile in many businesses. And I think it's been recognized now that it's not just when things are good or things are bad that loyalty plays a more predominant role. I think it's just a natural element of the infrastructure of a business. And back to the monetization aspect, it's clearly commercially beneficial, but as a bridge to a marketplace to actually activate incremental activity and drive value and drive experiences beyond the flight, the experience, absolutely critical. And we see a lot of energy around that right now.
Thanks, Bruce. If we zoom into a specific segment, and I think Gerald just talked earlier about the new trends that you're seeing and some of the new travelers that we're seeing, if we just zoom into the millennials, which is truly a very fickle, set of people who are not, loyal. When you talk about co-brands as well, not sure that there's something that they look at. They love the experience part of it, the emotional connections, but they're not committed, if you will, as well. They're very technology savvy as well. So we have to engage with them differently. How are we, from an airline perspective, engaging with this new segment that is really emerging, that has high demands, but sometimes doesn't commit to the brand?
Sure. Interestingly, at least in Europe, there's a much bigger focus from that age group on sustainability.
Yeah.
And I say in Europe because, coming from the North American market where the topic is barely even registers, but in Europe it's quite strong. We have platinum members, for example, who say, I'm a platinum member with you, I love flying with you for work, you're my carrier of choice, but I don't want you to recognize me when I'm traveling with my friends or family. Because I'm embarrassed, because it means that when they recognize me as a platinum member, it means that they know that I travel a lot. This is the reality that we have, right? So, I can't tell the customer that she's wrong in this case. And so it's a new challenge for us. And I think, historically, for my airline colleagues and those who travel a lot, you see the luggage tags people proudly show, and you see this at security. And as a side, we usually see it's the lower tiers who are most proudly showing off the luggage tags because they're like, oh, look, I finally got something, right? And so for us, what we said was, okay, how do we start to reward sustainability? How do we start to change what we consider to earn status to mimic more what our customers are asking for? And so we were certainly the first in Europe, and I believe one of the first in the world, to change the way we award our status currency, or what we call XP. And historically, it was only earned by flying by flying. And what we did in 2020, I think, was when we launched XP for sustainable choices. So SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, being the big one, where you earn 1 XP for every 10 euros spent as a contribution towards SAF. And what we saw when we did this was an 800% increase in amount of SAF purchased. Now, it was a low base, let's be transparent, but still, it's a significant change, and it also, to me, shows the power that loyalty has in influencing customer behavior, purely, from an objective manner. Going back to your question about showing the other teams at the company, the power of loyalty, well, here you go, the proof is in the pudding. So for us, when we did this, we have one customer who bought a first class La Première ticket for, I don't know, 15,000 euros, and then bought enough SAF to then qualify her for one trip, because we don't, at the moment, we don't cap the amount of XP you can earn. So for some people, it's really important. They do it as a personal investment to compensate their flight activity. Others, it's a way of trying to help them earn status. We don't judge, but it is something that we've seen has had significant success, and we're looking to expand that.
Thank you. Mark, maybe I'll go to you because we're talking about this topic. I know it's dear to Etihad's heart, and Kim presented last year around this. But could you just talk a little bit about the success of the program that you have?
Yeah, I mean, Conscious Choices is obviously a massive platform for us. We launched it a couple of years ago. I think what we've kind of evolved at is it's a form of gamification as well, so that the millennial group enjoys gamification as part of their program. And so we've recently released additional badges that allow, almost like there's a tiered structure in the badges that you receive as a consequence of your sustainability activities. And so the SAF elements that Ben talked about is prevalent for us, offsetting everyday transactions. We work with a quick service delivery provider in the UAE to provide offsetting for the traffic, the rides that happen as a consequence of your food being delivered. So we're trying to find a way to disseminate the Conscious Choices product, not just on the flying ecosystem, but on the everyday one as well. So again, it's part of the everyday life. Generally, it's outperformed our expectations from the beginning. The numbers speak for themselves, I think, similar to what Ben talked about, where we're in the triple digits in terms of percentage growth compared to our expectations, and it's continuing to grow. And I think it shows that people are conscious of what they're doing, pun intended, and that we need to find a way to allow them currency to be part of that journey for them, because they're fickle, they're millennials perhaps, and so if the miles can be used to support their kind of conscious choices, again, it means it's a bit of an easy ecosystem. And again, if they find a tangible benefit of that redemption, then ultimately they're going to continue to transact with you. We know once you redeem once, you're going to transact again, you get the benefit. So it's all part of that funnel.
The virtuous life cycle. Yeah.
Could I just build on that, if I may?
Sure.
Ben just touched on a really good point, and that is, loyalty is a means to change behavior in a good way, and I think it's a force for good. And if you intersect sustainability and loyalty and customers going forward, and I think it goes beyond the millennial marketplace. I think there's a lot more interest in the future preservation of things by universally. But I think and I'll use the Costa Coffee example, if I may. Let's get out of the airlines for a second. They now incentivize people to bring in their own cups, or their own cups into the environment, so that where they're trying to minimize or mitigate paper cups. Now take that forward a little bit. Now suddenly everybody's changed their behavior, their pattern. Think of the cost savings that maybe the brand's enjoying. Maybe it's a different service delivery model now that's operating, because you're not storing cups, your real estate's less. It changes the operating model. It is doing good for the planet, and the people feel good to interact with a brand that cares. And that's where mobilizing a movement, and I think where sustainability and loyalty and brands and individuals as like-minded partners to tackle something we all need to look at, could be quite powerful going forward.
I love the loyalty, a force for good. I'm going to use that internally also to make the case for loyalty and its impact. Gerald, and then I'll go to Ricky too.
Yeah, I think we touched a couple of things already, but coming from this structural change, we see clearly new priorities from the customers. So one is the personalization topic. I think we touched this one. The other one is the topic joy of use of digital channels, I would call it. And to be honest, in our case, it's a bit dull to use the digital platforms. So here the gamification aspect clearly comes in. We launched an app called UpTrip together with the Lufthansa Innovation Hub. They're also here, the guys. So if you're interested, have a look. Where the customer is able to scan the boarding passes to collect for collections, and then get rewards for this collection. So it's a way of badges or way of collecting badges. But also the sense of belonging and meaningfulness plays a role in there. And I wouldn't say they're not loyal, but you know, they need to have a purpose to commit. And that's what we clearly see. And sustainability is of course a major topic for us as well. And I like that the phrase. It's a force to force for good to change behavior. We are saying internally we are trying to motivate. To influence towards a sustainable behavior, and that's why we are also. I mean, you've seen it in the news. Lufthansa launched the green fares, so-called green fares, so which are including 20% sustainable aviation fuels, and we are motivating the customer by giving 20% status points on top, for instance. So, but this will clearly also be a major topic for us in 24. Yeah, how can we change the behavior towards these sustainable products? And we have also our own retail shop where you can also buy sustainable products, like you know the upcycling products, for instance. So we're using materials from the airplane and making new products out of it, and we're also incentivizing to buy.
Great to see all these initiatives as a force for good, helping with the planet. Ricky, for this segment specifically, are you modifying something around insurance products to make it more attractive to them? Do you see them engaging with the product?
So a few things around sustainability. You can't touch or feel insurance, right? It's a peace of mind, but we are digital by default.
Yeah.
So you know, instead of sending out a lot of legalese and paper, you know, everything can be done on an app. You don't have to, you know, we're not cutting trees down. From a millennial perspective, there's a lot of things we're doing. We're creating new products outside of the in-flight or in-airport experience or when things could happen. You know, we go from door to door and protecting the travelers, you know, full travel. But we're also creating lifestyle products around cybersecurity and home and easy living and doing other things so that we can support our partners in their lifestyle. And last, you know, millennials want things to be easy. And there was the friction-free concept that's, you know, bantered around, buzzword bingo. But millennials want effortless, right? They don't want to have to think about it. So we've created proactive benefits so that if something does go wrong and we're aware, we're going to reach out to anyone. You don't have to be a millennial. We're going to reach out and we're going to say, hey, there was a problem. How can we help you? Or, hey, you have a benefit. We can pay you. How would you like to be paid? And so we're going to proactively do that. There is no filing a claim. There's no friction. It's effortless to that individual.
I would say the true moments of truth in loyalty is actually what do you do around disruptions or when things go bad, and how do we engage with our members to be able. I think, Gerald, you talked about what you do in terms of personalizing that engagement, even with the crew and everybody. So that brings me into the topic of technology to enable all of this as well. Whether, you know, we talked about digital in general, but technology in general, we have embarked as Skywards into a big transformation from our loyalty back end, if you will, as well. I mean, Gerald, you talked about unbundling. It's one of the things we always explored, but technology was not there, and hopefully with the new platform, we will be able to do more of that, because I think for these segments, I think, you know, the traditional way of doing things may have to change a little bit so that we personalize more the benefits to our customers. So what are you guys you know, seeing from a technology perspective that is helping obviously address some of these trends? Your reliance on technology. You all hate your IT department and just they're not fast enough.
No comment.
I mean,
I think.
I mean, after finance, obviously, and RO. So, just.
You know, what I will say about our digital team is that they're always trying to do more with less. I think that's the common trend, is that we all have, you know, increasing demands on budgets, and they're always constrained to try to deliver more with, you know, one hand tied behind their back. So hats off to them, seriously. But I think, you know, as we try to transform, you know, as you know, the future does, you know, look kind of endless in terms of what technology will allow us to do with AI and all of that. It's how do we harness it? Seeing some of the things that ChatGPT can do, it's I mean, it's scary, it's cool, it's, you know, kind of all of the above. But I think for us, what we're really focusing on now is trying to actually fully build a proper CRM tool that ties in everything from your purchase behavior with or without a Flying Blue account, your preferences, what happens on board, how far in advance you book a flight, the kinds of tickets you normally book, all of that kind of stuff. And then in phase 2, of course, we'd like to work more with our partners to plug that in as well, to be able to then help more predictive targeting for our customers and emailing and online advertisements, SEO, that kind of stuff. For us, it's kind of the best way to kind of go after more revenues by having more precise, more relevant offers, both on the loyalty side as well as on the digital side.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say from an Allianz perspective, AI, ML, we've been using them for 10, 15 years. We have 280 billion data points to be able to make that relevant offer, exactly what you were talking about. But what we are focused on now is taking that to the claims process, right? How can we pay a claim quickly? How can we pay a claim without even someone filing a claim? And if we have to deny a claim, how can we do that quickly too? Because we can't pay everything, but we need to have clear and concise communication, and we're using the data that we have and the technology that we have to certainly focus on those points as part of the process.
Yeah, maybe a different angle besides the topic that you need to have a database, a proper one, and bringing the data and connecting the dots and bringing the data into the customer journey. I think what is driving us and important for us is also the operating model. So how are we working together internally to develop these products? How are we working together with IT and all the digital departments? And I think this is a really important aspect, because changing it into an agile way of working, building up product teams internally, this is really accelerating the process. I mean, Lufthansa is now building up the Lufthansa digital hangar, and by doing that, they're changing the operating model, and we see already that this is really accelerating the whole digitalization process. So I think this is a very important aspect when it comes to technology, also to empower the people, to empower also the organization to exactly deliver those products and values to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think just adding to that, I think Ben touched on, I think partners play a huge role in our success from a technology perspective. I think by no means are we experts in everything we're trying to do on the loyalty side. We have ideas, we ideate, but we innovate with the likes of Visa and Mastercard or Points.com or Loyal Solutions, and those guys that allow us to kind of surface a proposition that we don't necessarily need to build ourselves. We can leverage what they've already built and make that part of our ecosystem. So I think we have DT&I teams and we have digital teams that facilitate certain parts of the business, but at the end of the day, coming from a partnership background, I think it makes more sense sometimes just to bring in someone who's an expert and support them in that journey, and then collectively collaborate on what success looks like. Otherwise, we're never going to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And if I can, just from our standpoint, so when we go into clients, every idea and technology is a good one, right? And until you need a strategy first before technology actually can be enabled to make it happen. But the things I would challenge that should develop a roadmap for technology sit around, what are those customer universal need states that you're trying to solve for? And I've heard a few themes around choice and control and convenience, and I would attest that those are the sort of North Stars that inform your tech strategy, but it needs to be very much built around giving more control to the consumer and their interaction with the brand, giving them more choices through the program proposition. And the convenience factor is a really super important one. To Ricky's point, make my life easier. And again, I would say that's a universal truth. It might be heavy and millennial, but I would say we all could do with a few minutes back in our lives. And I think anything that enables that through the brands and the execution and technology is going to appeal.
Great. By the way, I don't hold any grudge against IT. I've been CTO for 1.5 years while running Skyward, so I can only blame myself if nothing is moving. Anyway, no, but I think it is an important enabler for the business as we go and we try to simplify and we give more control to our customers and personalize, etc. I think technology and AI, we've talked about, us being actually great users of AI for a long time, but now with generative AI, things are changing a little bit, and we need to adopt that as soon as possible. Our members are expecting that. Maybe, I don't know, how are we doing on time? 5 minutes? Yeah, so maybe we'll close maybe with your thoughts. I think we've went through the pandemic. Now in a post-pandemic, we seem to be also, really in this VUCA world, where it's very volatile, uncertain, complex world that we're witnessing. And we need to keep up being agile. We've talked about it as well, to either changing the way we operate or how do we engage with our customers. Anything we've learned in the past 3-4 years that you guys are are learning from and you're taking forward as you go? Big silence. I haven't learned anything.
We're an insurance company.
We're resilient.
Yeah, we think about gloom and doom all the time.
That's good business for you.
Yeah. What we focus on, and you guys can talk because my panel's next, so I'll give you some of my time if you want. But what we're focused on is not assuming, right? One of the things I said to begin with, don't assume what customers want. Don't think about today. Think about 8 months, 18 months, 3 years from now. What is the future? What are we going to need? And what does safety, security, and well-being look like? And that's what we're focused on. And as I mentioned, we're developing new products. Some of them will work great. Some of them may not. But we're constantly innovating and thinking about new products around the world that will focus on safety, security, and well-being, which then goes back to our partners, brand and loyalty, because we are, an extension of our partners' brand and their brand promise.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, maybe I can chime in here. I would frame it with flexibility. So that's what I've learned, at least, in all aspects. So flexibility in terms of building up a flexible agile organization which can react on changing customer needs, which can deliver fast products towards the customer. Also flexibility when it comes to technology stack, right? So we still have a lot of legacy in the back end, and how can we modelize, so to say, also this technology, and also flexibility when it comes to partners. So how can we also react and partner in a fast way with partners to integrate or to reduce partners also in a way. So flexibility is the word I would summarize it.
Thanks. Gerald, anything? Bruce?
Just to add, I think in volatile times, and let's be honest, I think they always will be, you still need that North Star, right? You need to know ultimately where you're trying to take, and I'll use a rather cheesy analogy, but it is a bit like flying. I mean, the pilot is empowered to actually land at a certain destination. How they get there could vary, winds, air traffic, whatever. Those are the flexibilities in the moment. It's real-time data that's operating to actually, but the destination is undeniable. And I think having a sight toward the North Star, that end state, simplifies a chaotic environment that you might be operating in and stops you sort of zigging and zagging, when in fact, if you stay the course, you may well get where you want to go.
I think just to echo that on the point about the North Star, I think for us, to reiterate, I think what we see is this aspirational behavior. People want to travel, people want to dream, and they dream about their destination. They dream about going, with their family to New York or to Tokyo or whatever, upgrading their next trip to business class, and that drives their irrational behavior. That drives their desire to engage with us, and by extension, the influences that where they buy their tickets. You're seeing. We just announced a new order of 50 airplanes. You've seen that, a few other airlines have done the same. How are we going to fill them? Well, that's our job. And I think we see that with loyalty, we really have power to influence that. And that,
Right.
with the revenge travel and all of that coming back post-COVID, we see that in reality.
Mark?
My only last point I'd say, I think we learned from the last 3 or 4 years that every cloud has a silver lining. I think it drove us to innovate and change and evolve our programs and provide other ways for members to be engaged, and I think we need to maintain that sort of trajectory. So, the world is always changing. We need to innovate through the process, so we can't stay still. And I think that whole 2020 and beyond meant that we had to innovate and change forcibly, and I think we'll all come out as a benefit of that as a consequence. So no longer are we all legacy programs with traditional solutions. I think we're all different in our own way, and I think that needs to continue to evolve.
Excellent to finish on a very positive note. I'll again summarize here. We have flexibility, innovation, focusing on the North Star and actually our members as well, making sure we're doing the right things. And then again, we're trying to just look at this as an opportunity rather than a challenge and a problem. So it's just good for the industry to continue to drive forward. Thank you, guys. for all your thoughts and insights. I'll take some of it and try to implement it in our own program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.